Hello dear friends, how are you all doing? Candidate Master Ranveer Mohite here, and in this video I want to review a game played by one of our subscribers. They are playing with the white pieces and their rating is around 900. With black is playing another person whose rating is around 950. So you can say the rating range of this game is around 900 elo. Let's see the game and let's understand what are the typical ideas and typical things that happen in such a game. So white plays e4, very good. e5, development, bishop b5. And we have the Spanish or the Ruy Lopez opening on the board. Now, I don't suggest you play bishop b5, especially if you are under 1500, because there is a lot of theory involved in this move. And at the same time, you need to know some advanced middle game concepts which you may or may not know. Instead, I recommend the move d4. This is known as the Scotch opening. It's much easier to learn. There is not a lot of theory involved and you still get very nice positions with the white pieces. When I started playing the game, this is the first opening that I learned, and bishop b5 was something I picked up when I had the resources to prepare an opening. Try to play d4 instead of bishop b5. That would be my suggestion. a6 happened in the game. Okay, standard mainline theory, and bishop chops the knight. Now I would say this move is a mistake. Now some of you might be like, how is this move a mistake? Isn't this the exchange variation of the Ruy Lopez? Yes, it is the exchange variation of the Ruy Lopez, but if let's say you knew that you were playing the exchange variation of Ruy Lopez, okay, then I would say you know the theory, you know what you're doing, so good, then it's a fine move. But in this case, white, I'm sure, doesn't know the theory of the exchange variation, just because I know how the game went. dc6 happened in the game. White thought that with there being no knight to guard this pawn, he can just gobble this one for free. But that's not the case. And if you have watched the video on the Ruy Lopez traps, I've covered why white cannot capture this pawn. Because black is very quickly able to regain this pawn back. Okay, black plays the move queen to d4, which is what happens in the game. And this queen attacks the knight and the pawn. So the knight drops back, it's more valuable. Black gobbles this pawn. We again have equal number of pawns on the board. The benefit for black here is they have these two beautiful bishops. Two beautiful bishops with open diagonals. Black is very happy with this position. Already black has a very comfortable game from here on. So the right way to play here is not to capture this pawn on e5. Okay, the exchange variation, you don't want to capture this pawn here. You want to play a move like short castle. And let's say if they play f6 trying to defend this pawn, then you go d4. This is the mainline theory of the exchange variation. But again, I don't recommend going into the Ruy Lopez in the first place and not into the exchange variation, please. So yeah, after queen into e4 check, black got the pawn back. White had to trade queens because king f1 would be just a very awkward position for the king. So queen e2, captures, knight f6. Now black has completely fine position here, but that doesn't mean that white cannot win this game. At the 900 level, most games will not be decided on who gets the opening advantage. They'll be decided by something else, as you'll soon see. But from here on, the important strategy for white is to develop all their pieces as quickly as possible. You know, all these pieces that are sitting on the back rank, they should come into the game very quickly. That should be the next plan going forward. Next short-term plan going forward. Rook e1, white is doing good. And bishop e7, black is also doing good, developing their pieces. White plays king f1, okay, fine. And bishop g4. Now this is where white goes a little wrong. Let's understand what is black's threat first. Black wants to gobble this knight. Say you play a3, black will capture, and they'll ruin our pawn structure. So this is black's threat, to gobble this knight. There are two ways usually in which you can react to such threats. One is you become completely defensive, which is what white did in the game by playing the move rook e3. Now if the bishop captures, this rook will capture back. This is white's idea. But this is a very defensive move. It basically tells this rook, hey rook, you know what? Yes, you are on the open file, but your task here is you also have to guard this knight. It limits a bit of potential of this rook. This is a very common thing that I see. Okay, there is a threat. The first instinct for many players at a certain rating level is to defend. But as you go up the rating scale, as you go up the rating ladder, the main thing becomes to counter attack. the main way you react to a threat becomes counter attack. You don't allow your opponent to consistently give you threats. So here in this position, what stronger player would do is they could play a move like knight e5, just eyeing this bishop. Okay, keeping an eye on this bishop. Bishop drops here, the black bishop will also counter attack. Then you simply play the move d3, block this bishop, and once again white is on track to complete his plan. He's gonna develop his pieces and get all of them into the game. But after bishop g4, white plays the move rook e3, ties up this rook here. Now black plays the move knight to d5, hitting this rook. And all of a sudden this rook is in a very interesting spot. What does it do? If it drops anywhere that is not the third rank, black has this option always. So where does this rook go? In the game, white decides to go rook d3, which is, I would say, a very, very risky move, a very bad move to make. It would be better to play a move like rook e1 and allow doubled pawns like this. So just so that on the next move, you can get all these pieces into the game. Play d3, you can somehow find a way for this bishop to come into the game. You can develop the knight. Ideally, that is how you want to play. Yes, these double pawns will be a weakness, but you want to play with your pieces. You don't want to stop your development just because these double pawns are gonna happen. After knight d5, rook d3 happened. They played short castle, which is fine. The easier way was just to play the move bishop f5, hit this rook, and this rook cannot go here to defend the pawn because it would be chopped off. But instead, black played the move here, short castle. Now look what this rook does. It doesn't allow this pawn to move forward. If this pawn doesn't move forward, how is this bishop going to come into the game? So this rook is kind of being a hindrance in white's position only. After short castle, white played h3, hitting the bishop. Once again, this is a very easy way to win a pawn for black, but black doesn't do it. Instead, black plays the move knight b4. This is where I want to highlight another point. Black kind of complicates the position when he should not have. You know, he can just simply play bishop f5 and just gobble this c2 pawn. It would have been a much easier way to play this position. But knight b4 happens and now black loses this bishop. Black gobbles this rook, although I think knight c2 is better and trying to gobble this rook for free. Because remember, after knight a1, there is nobody who can recapture the knight. So knight c3, knight a1. This is much better for black because this knight is not captured and this knight can simply run away on the next few moves too. But I think already knight c2 is very much, you need to calculate, and already for someone who's 900, it can be a very hard move to find. So knight d3 happened in this position, cd3. White has two minor pieces. White has two knights versus a single rook. And usually, two minor pieces kind of dominate the rook, are kind of stronger than the rook. But for them to be effective against a rook, you need to coordinate them well. After c into d3, black played rook a d8, hitting at this pawn. The problem with king e2 is black can always play the move rook e8. And once this bishop moves, this king would have to go somewhere, and then the d3 pawn is lost again. So white ignores the d3 pawn and plays the move b3, which is fine, which is a good move. He's paying attention to his development. Nicely done. Why not bishop f6? Trying to hit this rook and capture this rook. Isn't it trapped? Not exactly, because white is able to put the knight in the middle. And if black gobbles this pawn, then again we have the bishop here covering this diagonal. Okay, so this doesn't work. So rook into d3 was played by black. Good. White develops his piece. Good. Bishop b4, bishop b2. Good. Developing the pieces. Nicely done. Rook e8, like g5 happened, b5, and rook e1. White has successfully developed all his pieces. It's a very good sign. This game is hanging in the balance. It's equal. Black played rook e8, avoiding the trade. Imagine two armies are fighting, and one of the army has a forward outpost. The goal of the defending army would be to clear out that forward outpost, right? Which is exactly what white wants to do with this rook. How can white get rid of this rook from here? If you want, you can pause and you can think about the moves. So one idea would be to go rook e2, king e1, protect this pawn, and then go knight e5. You cannot directly go knight e5 because you would lose this pawn on d2. And another idea is to play the move knight e4. Now this knight protects this pawn, and on the next turn, white is going to play the move knight e5 and kick away this rook. White is even threatening this pawn. Just with the move knight e4, white would put themselves in a position from where they can start pushing back these black pieces and start to create threats in black's position. You want to calculate, can this bishop gobble this pawn? It turns out black cannot gobble this pawn because this pawn was defended by two lower value pieces. Okay, so if bishop d2 happens, there is knight d2, and this knight is lower valued compared to the rook. So if the rook cannot capture itself for the knight. Okay, because that would simply be a very bad trade. Okay, knight d2, and yeah, rook d2 is just not possible because there is a checkmate 2 here. Okay, but in any case, even if there were no checkmate here, the position is still in white's favor because they have an extra bishop. So you want to make sure that you calculate the line. Don't just think that, okay, I have 3 attackers, or my opponent has 3 attackers, I have 2 defenders. So this pawn, so even if I play knight e4, this pawn is not being protected. Don't think like that. So rook e8 happened. King e2, not a good move. King f8. And now here the final mistake, or I would say a big mistake that kind of decides the game. White played here knight to e5. Can you see what is wrong with this move? There is another interesting technique in chess, which is about finding out the drawback of a particular move. Okay, every move has a drawback. For example, let's say this move king g8 to h8. The drawback is there is nobody to guard this h8 square. It can be stuff like this. Similarly, this knight moves here. The drawback is now this knight is no longer controlling any of these squares. Oops. Okay, so you want to think whenever you move a piece, is there any drawback to that particular move? Okay, if you don't, let's say if you're not able to find a plan, always look for this. Is there any drawback? How can you exploit it? Knight e5 was a mistake. Rook d2 check happened. Yeah, this bishop is lost. King f1, black captured the bishop. Excuse me. White captured the pawn. Rook d2 happened. Yes, this bishop is attacked. White could take the bishop. That is one option, but white just loses all these pawns here. Check. Check. Yeah, too many pawns are lost. Next time black will just start to push this pawn, and black has a very easily winning position here. Black can play h5 for instance. Let's say white captures en passant. You can once again take like this. Let's say the knight drops back. There is this check. King moves and h5. Next move you can just play h4, h3, support this rook and give a checkmate threat. Like say this, you go this, say this, you go this. This pawn protects the rook, and next move this rook can drop back and give a checkmate. So after the move rook d2, white decides to play knight e4, and black captures this pawn, gives a check. In this position white resigned. Now I don't know why white resigned here, because white still has some hope left in the position, as they can capture this rook. If black captures this rook, white captures, and there are 2 knights against black's rook. Yes, this is a lost position because white is losing too many pawns after rook a2. Against, of course, a stronger opposition, white would have lost, but it is always possible that you can blunder a knight fork and you lose the game. This resignation was a little premature. I don't suggest you resign so early. So yeah, that is it. If you enjoyed these kind of reviews, do let me know in the comment section. If you have a game that you would want me to see, let me know. To learn more about the traps that could happen in the Ruy Lopez opening, which was played in this game, go check out this video.